Coming up on Mountain News this morning, a nonprofit pledges to give survivors of the Western Kentucky tornado outbreak some major assistance, and the Commonwealth prepares to see some funding in order to help clean up the environment.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News this morning.
Good morning to you at 6:02 here on this Thursday morning. I'm Dakota Makeris. It's February 17th. Good morning to you. Let's take it over to Brandon. And Brandon, before you start, I have a question for you this morning. Multiple times you mentioned the sun. If we see the sun during a severe weather, chance, well, that's bad. Can you explain that to us? Just walk us through what that actually means, because I've been puzzled by it, honestly.
Absolutely, and the thing about that is sun heats up the atmosphere, which makes more energy when storms actually arrive. So that's what you don't want to see, is that energy increase in front of the storms itself, because it just makes them more strong. So that's something that you need to watch, and that, again, that's why sun is bad, because if you get warmer, the storms are always worse. All right, let's take a look at our storms right now. They're off in the distance, but they're moving toward us quickly today. Great question, Dakota. We're looking again at the rain out to the west into parts of western Kentucky this morning, back west of Louisville out towards St. Louis. But it's coming this way, and it will be here a little bit later today. Our outer bands will be here shortly. And look at the temperatures in front of it. This is already mild temperatures for this time of the year, up to, watch that. We went from 48 in Middlesboro to 55 in less than 10 minutes. So there's that increase. We're already seeing that quickly. So 48 in Jonesville, now the cool spot in our region, and 62 at Irvin is the warm spot. That's how fast those temperatures can increase. Look at these wind gusts. We showed you sustained winds earlier. These are the gusts. 20, 30, 40 miles per hour. The wind advisory is not in effect yet. Doesn't start till 9 o'clock. So that's an interesting thing with that too. 69 is our forecast high. Even though no model is showing that, we know that temperatures usually overachieve when you've got those south winds. 49 is the average high for this time of the year. We're 1 degree shy of the record. If we make it to 70, we'll tie it. That was set back in 2011. Dakota?
All right, Brendan, thank you. A bill to limit the governor's pardoning powers has passed out of committee in Frankfort. It comes after former Governor Matt Bevin made more than 100 pardons and commuted hundreds of sentences on his way out of office. Some of those were controversial. Chelsea Jones has the latest on the bill.
This amendment will prevent any more hiding in the darkness of the last minutes of administration.
Kentucky lawmakers are considering a bill that would restrict the pardoning power of the governor. This comes after former Governor Matt Bevin issued hundreds of pardons and commutations right before he left office. Some of those included murder cases. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle were upset.
They disgusted me then, they disgust me now.
Governor Bevin, I don't know what his motivations were for issuing all of those pardons and how he did it.
Republican Senator Christian McDaniel is sponsoring Senate Bill 149. It prevents the governor from granting pardons or commuting sentences 30 days before a gubernatorial election up to the 5th Tuesday after the election.
The amendment simply, like I said, it does not strip the ability to issue a pardon. It merely makes it impossible to not stand in front of the voters after you do issue those pardons.
Yet some Democratic lawmakers feel the bill is unnecessary.
When we look at limiting the power of the executive, you've got to have a check on the judicial branch, which is what the executive branch is, but you also don't want to just completely handcuff the executive branch and what it's trying to do.
Governor Andy Beshear talked about the actions of Bevin, his former opponent.
The worst pardons that we have seen, I think, in the history of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, to people who committed heinous crimes.
But Beshear says he's worried about making changes based on the actions of one governor.
I think the solution is to elect reasonable people who would never, ever, ever do something like that.
Now, Senate Bill 149 calls for amending the state constitution, which means even if it passes through the legislature, it would still have to be approved by voters. The bill passed out of committee. It now heads to the Senate floor. In Frankfort, Chelsea Jones, WKYT.
If the legislature passes the bill, the public could vote on the bill in this year's election. The Kentucky Senate passed a bill yesterday to stop transgender girls from competing on girls' sports teams. The Senate passed the bill with a provision to use an athlete's birth certificate to determine the team they're eligible for. It also passed with an amendment limiting the bill's reach to grades 6 through 12. The House has its own version of the bill, which is still being considered by a committee before a full House vote. Well, yesterday, the state capitol rotunda hosted the annual statewide fairness rally for LGBTQ rights. The rally focused on several LGBTQ issues, such as barring licensed therapists from engaging in conversion therapy practices. Well, the Governor Andy Beshear spoke at the rally, pushing to ban discrimination against LGBTQ people who live and work here in the Commonwealth.
In so many Kentucky cities, Kentuckians can still be fired, denied housing, or kicked out of a public space just because who they are. That is not how we treat our neighbors on Team Kentucky, and I fully support a statewide fairness ordinance that will protect all our people under the law.
Well, the governor says 2 years ago, 14 Kentucky cities had passed a fairness ordinance. Now that number has increased to 23. Yesterday, Habitat for Humanity announced a $27 million disaster recovery initiative to help Western Kentucky tornado victims. The main focus will be providing shelter through the construction of 100 new homes and doing critical repairs on 300 others. The entire effort is expected to take 36 months, but organizers say availability of materials and labor could shift that timeline. A cleanup could be coming to a well near you. Millions of Americans live near abandoned fossil fuel wells across the country. The federal government is throwing billions of dollars at the program. The wells release unhealthy emissions that seep into the air or local groundwater, wreaking havoc on the surrounding environment. Adam Peltz from the Environmental Defense Fund says the federal money will put people to work on making these areas safe again.
Tens of thousands of oil field service workers will be out over the next several years plugging and remediating.
Kentucky will receive almost $104 million in federal funding to help clean up abandoned oil and gas wells throughout the state. Kentucky Public Service Commission approved a rate increase for the water district in Martin County. The Lexington Herald Leader reports Martin County Water District customers will see a change on their bills beginning April 1st. Water districts are directing customers who are having difficulties paying their bills to assistance organizations like the Big Sandy Area Community Action Program. App Harvest says 34 people were let go recently. The company says this is part of a move to expand its farm network and focus on production. It is expected to open more farms this year and add about 550 jobs. Last month, the ag tech company projected net sales from last year in the $9 million range. Officials say Pikeville's 2nd Street project is a bit ahead of schedule. This week, the first intersection was finished on 2nd and Division Streets, and now the project has moved a bit farther and workers are now at the Grace Avenue intersection. City Manager Philip Ellswick says the project has been going very smoothly and is on schedule to be finished before 2022's Hillbilly Days Festival in April.
Assuming the weather goes well, it'll be around the Hillbilly Days. I feel like we may be a little ahead of schedule, but you know, we're in the midst of the winter, so it's hard to say what may happen. But I think it'll be right around the time of the festival.
Well, he also says he hopes the project is finished by Hillbilly Days because it will add a bit of beauty before the festival returns for the first time since 2019.
6:10 on this severe weather alert day Thursday, and we are tracking warm temperatures, strong winds, and a cold front that could bring us some severe weather later. Let's take a look at those temperatures first, though. In the 60s already in a lot of areas, and they're going up fast there. 55 at Middlesboro, up from 48 a few minutes ago. Still 48 in Jonesville, 62 in Irvin, 61 Somerset, Williamsburg, Moorhead, 58 in Prestonsburg, 56 in Pikeville. Statewide, 65 in Bowling Green right now, 62 in Louisville, 64 in Nashville as that warm air surges in. Look at some of these wind gusts from across the state. 39 in Bowling Green, 32 in Louisville, 33 Nashville, 45 mile-an-hour wind gust at Lexington this morning. 69 is the forecast high today. We could see in some spots gusts of up to 60 miles per hour or greater as we head deeper into the day. Southwest winds 10 to 20 sustained. It's going to be windy. It's going to be stormy as we look ahead. Of course, we will continue our severe weather alert day coverage through today, tonight, and possibly tomorrow morning as we see strong wind and storms and then maybe a little bit of wintry weather behind that. But a calm weekend is on the way to give us a break. Dakota?
All right, Brendan, thank you so much. The time is 6:11. When we come back, the pressure is on for unruly airplane passengers to face some criminal charges. That's on the way.